The scientific writing workshop for early career researchers in the field of project management. CIB is jointly hosting this workshop together with Project Scholar Society, because of which participants in this workshop have a rare opportunity to benefit from presentations and feedback of 4 distinguished professors in the field of project management. It is a great privilege to have Professor Nathalie Drouin, Professor Ralf Müller, Professor Jonas Söderlund, and Professor Lavagnon as the keynote speakers of the scientific writing workshop. Following this welcome and introduction, our keynote speakers are going to have a joint presentation about scientific writing. Then a scientific writing exercise will be given to the participants. This exercise includes writing an abstract up to 150 words. The topic can be chosen either by the participants or can be given by the keynote speakers. The allocated time for the completion of this exercise is roughly 30 minutes. Participants in groups of 4 or 5 will be assigned to 4 breakout rooms for writing this abstract and completing this exercise. And they will have chance and possibility to ask their questions while they are from the keynote speakers, while they are writing the abstract. Following the completion of the exercise, the participants will stay in those breakout rooms, and one of the keynote speakers will be assigned to each breakout room for giving feedback on the written abstracts. So let's start with the presentations of our keynote speakers. Jonas.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Good evening if you're in Europe. And it's great to see you here tonight, and very many thanks for inviting me and the rest of the panel here today. And we have divided the presentations and the different topics among us. So we suggested that we go sort of through what is the normal order of a traditional paper. So I will start with the introduction, and then the other speakers will follow up on methodological issues and theory building issues, and so that's the general order. My name is Jonas Söderlund. I'm from Linköping University, also affiliated with BI Norwegian Business School, and I want to talk to you or share some experience on introduction and the role of the introduction, not necessarily just for the reader, because that's a conventional view, but more on the role of the introduction, and more specifically the role of writing the introduction for scientific writing. And I think I have, this is lessons from my own work, struggling quite a lot with writing a good introduction. And I'm still not really happy with my introductions. So I'm also really very much learning the craft of how to write an introduction. I'm still trying to learn how I should write, or I should make better use of my writing of an introduction. Let's give you sort of the standard, the template for how to write an introduction and what an introduction really is. Well, the conventional wisdom, and I'm not saying that this is wrong, but this is the conventional wisdom, is that the introduction should, of course, capture the reader's interest, get them interested in this is what I want to read more about it. I'm intrigued by this. And the introduction is a way to declare what the paper, if we're talking about a paper introduction, then what the paper is about is to present a gap in the literature. Okay, we have something here. No one has ever done this before, and this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to fill this gap. And this is the way you state sort of the aim and the research questions that your paper is targeting. In a way, you could look upon, from this point of view, the introduction as a plan that you should deliver. And the introduction in in this respect is the first thing you should write. And I'm not saying that this is wrong, but I'm saying that you also need to take into account that there are other things with writing an introduction and what the introduction is about. And I'm going to present this as an alternative view of how you can look upon the introduction. And I would say the alternative view is summarized by the following 5 set of issues. Then the introduction is a way for you to sharpen your thinking, to drive problematization all the way through your research. You should read, you should write, you should make use of the introduction to make it something to sharpen your thinking, to engage in a conversation, and to trigger debate. Not only filling a gap, but actually problematizing, of finding something that is unresolved, an intriguing issue, something where people have different views on that are opposing, that you introduce and reflect on a debate, and you're clear about what that debate is about. And the introduction in that sense, because it's something that you use, you write and you rewrite many, many times during the crafting of your paper, it is also important to say that it is through this writing that you actually learn. You learn through writing the introduction, and the introduction in that respect is not just a plan that you deliver on. No, the introduction becomes more of a process. And the introduction is, of course, not always and the only first thing you should write. It's actually the last thing you should write. You cannot write the introduction in that respect until you're done with the paper, when you know what the paper is about. Then you can really write a good introduction. But you always have to keep on writing the introduction. Otherwise, you don't know what the problem is, the problematization of your paper. You don't know the debate and crafting the debate, and you don't learn enough about what the paper is about and what you can deliver on. And in that respect, it's important that the introduction covers the following 5 elements. And I'm saying this also because if you are going to write and rewrite the introduction maybe 40 times, and some of the best papers within our area, if you talk to some of the authors, they say that they've rewritten the introduction 20, 30. Some of the best papers in our area have introductions where the authors, and we're talking about really, really good authors, people like Lavagnon, Ralf and Nathalie and myself, they have written and rewritten their introduction 30 or 40 times. And to do that, to master that, you need to then think of the introduction containing the following 5 elements. And I think it's also a way to keep the introductions relatively short, because if it's too long, it becomes more and more difficult to actually rewrite it. So, and I'm taking this from editorial from the AMJ, that I've used in my own teaching. And I said, it's the following 5 essential elements. The first paragraph is, what is the theme? What is the area, the topic of the paper? Number 2, what do we know about this theme, this topic? What does previous research say? And the third paragraph is, however, there is a problem. There is an unresolved issue. There is an intriguing dilemma involved here that has not been resolved. 4, this is what I intend to do. This is my aim, my questions. And 5, this is what I bring to the table. This is my contribution. This is my new concept. This is my new perspective, what I have. So, some advice. Be clear about what conversation you would like to participate in and about what this conversation is about. In that respect, know where you're going. Try to create a mystery rather than merely a gap. Try to identify a dilemma that makes readers curious. Know why you're traveling. Identify your travel companions. And with that, I mean people who you stand on, whose shoulders you stand on to make your argument, but also people who you might criticize. You might criticize Söderlund's paper. You might criticize Müller's earlier work. You might criticize the work that Lavagnon or Nathalie has done. That's fine, because that is what academic work is about. And they can still be your travel companions, even though you might not agree with them. Don't introduce too many concepts, and make sure you focus on the concepts that are central to your research already in the introduction. Travel lightly in that respect is a good advice. Know what's in your luggage. And finally, of course, there is a goal and meaning in our journey, but it is the road that is worth the effort. It is the actual process of writing the introduction that is the fun part. That is what I had to say about the introduction and how to think of it more as a process rather than a plan in that respect. So thank you for listening, and over to the next speaker.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Jonas. I think I'm next in line. Also, a warm welcome from my side to this session today. I want to talk about something crucial in the realm of academic research, and that is the significance of mentioning the onto-epistemological stance and theoretical lens in our research papers. Both are, in fact, fundamental pillars that underpin the validity and integrity of our scholarly work. And to interpret any study's results correctly, we must know the onto-epistemological stance taken during the study. In other words, study results can only be interpreted correctly in the onto-epistemological context they were created. But let's first break down these terms. Onto-epistemology refers to our understanding of reality and how we come to know it. It delves into questions like, what is the nature of reality, and how do we acquire knowledge about it? For example, is reality objective and measurable, or is it subjective and only in our brain? Yeah. This stance, whatever we take, this stance influences every aspect of our research, from the questions we ask to the methods we employ. And by explicitly stating our onto-epistemological stance, we provide clarity on the philosophical foundation upon which our research is built. Giorgio Locatelli and I have written an editorial in Project Management Journal about it, where we provide examples of the variety of different interpretations of study results in different ontological perspectives. Sina will share this editorial with you in the chat room or as an email later on. Secondly, the theoretical lens is the conceptual framework through which we interpret and analyze our data. Yeah, it comprises of theories, models, concepts that guide our understanding of the phenomena under investigation. Just as a pair of glasses shapes how we perceive the world, our theoretical lens shapes how we interpret our findings. Therefore, articulating the theoretical lens not only enhances transparency, but also allows readers to evaluate the rigor and coherence of our analysis. Moreover, it tells the reader that what we are looking for. For example, when we investigate the role of emotional intelligence in projects, we could take an economic lens and identify the cost savings through more EI leadership. Or we could take a psychological lens to investigate the well-being of team members under EI-based leadership, which then might lead to cost savings. Yeah? So in any case, the reader should know what perspective we have taken in our study. Is it an economic perspective, a psychological perspective, a management perspective, or what is it? Yeah. Now, why are these elements so crucial in our research papers? Well, for starters, they contribute to the credibility and transparency of our work. Yeah, by explicitly stating our onto-epistemological stance and theoretical lens, we invite readers to the intellectual journey that led to our conclusions in the paper. Yeah, this transparency fosters trust and confidence in the validity of our research findings. Mentioning these elements promotes scholarly dialogue and advancement. Research is not conducted in a vacuum. It is part of an ongoing conversation within academic communities. So by disclosing our philosophical stance and theoretical lens, we invite fellow researchers to engage with our ideas, challenge our assumptions, and build upon our work. And this dialogue fuels intellectual growth and pushes the boundaries of knowledge forward. Furthermore, acknowledging our onto-epistemological stance and theoretical lens promotes reflexivity in research practice. Reflexivity entails critically examining our own biases and assumptions that we have in the research process. Yeah. By openly discussing our philosophical orientations and theoretical frameworks, we demonstrate a commitment to self-awareness and intellectual honesty. This level of reflexivity enriches the quality of our research and guards against potential misunderstanding, such as about philosophical reconciliation in mixed method studies. Summing up, mentioning the philosophical stance and the theoretical lens in research paper is not an academic formality. It is a cornerstone of scholarly integrity, transparency, and advancement. By doing so, we honor the intellectual traditions that underpin our disciplines, invite others to join our intellectual journey, and uphold the highest standards of rigor and honesty in academic inquiry. So much from my side. Thank you.
Thanks, Ralf. I'm next in row.
I think so.
Okay, let me just share my screen. Do you see my PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes.
Okay, lovely. So thank you, Sina, for the invitation and the introduction. So writing the methodology section of a scientific paper is a critical aspect that demands precision, transparency, and clarity. So this section really serves as a guide for other researchers to replicate and validate your study, making it an essential part of a scientific communication process. Having said that, I put on this slide 16 advices, but I'm not going to discuss the 16 advices. Don't worry, because it's going to be too long, but I'm going to pinpoint some key elements from some of them. So starting with clarity, it is really important to ensure that your methods are described in a manner that leaves no room for ambiguity. Readers should be able to understand each step of your study without confusion. It's easy to say, but it's not easy to make it sure that you do it. So avoid unnecessary jargon and be explicit about the procedures you undertook. Presenting your methods in a logical and chronological order is also very crucial. It aids readers in understanding the flow of your study. Start with the initial steps, such as participant recruitment or data collection, and progress through each stage. This organization not only facilitates comprehension, but also provides a roadmap for fellow researchers attempting to either replicate or recreate your work. In terms of participants, clearly defining and describing the characteristic of your study participants is also essential. This may include demographic details such as age, gender, or any specific criteria relevant to your research question. Readers need a clear understanding of the population under study. Also, in terms of sampling's method, clearly explain how participants were chosen or recruited, whether throughout random sampling, stratifying sampling, or other methods you have selected. Specify the research design employed in your study, whether is it experimental, is it a case study? Clearly articulate why this design was chosen and how it aligns with your research objectives. This is really important to align it with research objectives. In terms of variables, this involves what exactly? Clearly stating how each variable is measured and manipulate. This is also important to detail, to bring this information in your methodology section. Detail the tools, the instruments, or the equipment you use in your study. And for data collection, clearly explain how data were collected, if specialized tools or software were used, provide details on their application. And don't forget that a transparent account of the data collection process is essential for evaluating the robustness of your results. And this is what we want to achieve when we explain our methodology. In terms of data analysis, specify the statistical or other analytical methods you use to analyze the collected data. Detail any statistics, tests, software, and so on. And again, transparency in data analysis ensures that your results are not only interpretable, but also verifiable by other researchers. In terms of ethical considerations, clearly state whether your study received approval from an ethics review board or institutional review board. Demonstrate transparency by acknowledging the limitations of your study. And do not forget, no study is without constraints. So you have to explain those limitations. And if applicable, describe any pilot studies conducted to validate your methods before the main study. Very often we conduct pilot studies, but we forget to include it in our paper. And it's important. You develop a pilot study. Do not forget to include it as well in your paper in the methodology section. Explain how your methodology aligns with or differs from previous studies in the field. And to conclude, what I would like to share with you, if I can change my slide, is that writing the methodology section of a scientific paper requires a meticulous approach. So remember that a well-crafted methodology section not only enhances the quality of your paper, but also serves as a valuable resource for the scientific community. So thank you very much for your time and for listening.
I guess I am next in line.
Yes.
Hi, everybody, and thanks for the invitation. So what else can I add after Jonas, Ralf, and Nathalie? So the least I can say is that I'm sitting on, my presentation is sitting on the shoulders of a giant here. So you've written your introduction, as Jonas suggested. You've thought about your onto-epistemological convictions, as Ralf, advised, and you are clear on your methodological choices. The question I'm going to throw at you at this point is, so what? You're doing the research, so what? Or as Jonas put it, what is it that you bring to a table? You know, in terms of a conversation with the readers, in terms of a conversation with anybody in the community of knowledge. So that's the question I would like to focus on here. So these two-word questions comes with a two-word answer. And that two-word answer is theoretical contribution. So why theoretical contribution? Well, if you want to publish in top journals nowadays, you need to understand that buzzword. That has not always been the case, for sure, in the history of our journals, but in any top journal in social science and business and management, and of course, project management journals like IJPM or PMJ, it's quite clear that what they want more and more is theoretical contribution. If you look at what IJPM is saying on their website, they want papers that are also expected to explicitly build on current debates in recent literature and to contribute to theory. And PMJ, for instance, would say they want papers that should relate to research and provide new contribution to project management theory and or project management practices. So theoretical contribution is more and more a must. But the challenge for all our journals is the following. We get lots of submissions, but little or no theoretical contribution. Now, what is a theoretical contribution? Or first and foremost, what is a contribution? A contribution is, I would say, an original, novel, interesting, intriguing, to use the word that Jonas was using a little bit earlier, and you know, to quote a little bit about what Nathalie was saying, and both Nathalie and Ralf, it needs to be rigorous and relevant insight into a specific topic, theme of study. That's a contribution. This contribution can be of an empirical nature, which means that you know, you observe a number of trends and you know, with some sort of empirical work. And then, you know, you do not do that work with any you do not come to this work with any sort of theoretical a priori. But what we mean about theoretical contribution is that your contribution is being informed by theory. I'm gonna lay out a little bit more detail on that. So Jonas made my work easier by already pinpointing two traditions in terms of doing research. The first is gap spotting. So you realize that there is something missing, a gap, and you want to fill that gap. So to give you an example, to make it a little bit more concrete, not just theoretical. So I was going back to, you know, 20 years ago when I was doing my PhD, I was interested in doing work on World Bank funded projects, or if you prefer, international development projects. I'm well aware of critical success factor theory being well established in the field of project management, using work such as Jeff Pinto's work. But there is not anything that has been written on critical success factors of international development projects. So the only thing that I need to do is answer the following question. Why is it that international development projects are specific enough that the current critical success factor work that fits very well with construction projects or innovation project is not sufficient to explain the specificity of international development projects? So basically, I was trying to fill a gap in terms of the assumptions and logic related to critical success factor theory when applied to international development projects. So that is just an example. Another example of, a theoretical contribution, which is not of a gap spotting nature, is problematization. Jonas spoke a little bit about that. So you're feeling uneasy about when he was talking about mystery. You're feeling a little bit uneasy about an existing theory or about an existing explanation or about the assumptions and logic of prior work. Let me give you an example. So consider, for instance, you know, the planning fallacy theory, you know, this tendency to let us say, overpromise and under-deliver in projects, which leads many practitioners to overestimate the benefits of project and underestimate costs, for instance. So I was feeling a little bit uneasy with that. Why? Because I noticed that the planning fallacy offers a gloomy view of project performance. And it does not say much about, the shades of gray between success and failure. Because at the end of the day, the planning fallacy is most importantly about project failure, or at best, project underperformance, cost overruns and benefit shortfalls. How about the other situation where, projects do not underperform, or they have shades of gray between success and failure? I'm talking about projects such as, let us say, the LA metro line that was delivered within budget, only not to deliver the expected benefits. At least it was a partial success. The planning fallacy does not cover these kind of situations. So therefore, in my own work, I came up with a theory which I call the fifth hand, or the savvy hand, which can explain cost overruns and benefit shortfalls. But in the case of the shades of gray between success and failure, that is an example of a problematization sort of theoretical contribution. For lack of time, I'm going to stop there and then answer the following last question. Where can we find the theoretical contribution in a typical paper? Of course, it is within the introduction and discussion sessions. So you see why the introduction session is quite powerful. So in introduction session, like Jonas suggested, you need to answer 2 or 3 key questions. The first one is what we know. Jonas covered that. The second one is what do we know, in order to establish a gap or, a problematization. And the last one is, your insight in terms of whether you're going towards a gap spotting theoretical contribution or towards a problematization kind of theoretical contribution. And then in the discussion session, you need to go back to the theoretical contributions and then state clearly what these theoretical contributions are through clear-cut statements of each of them, and offer cogent explanation of their importance, the questions they examine, and the insights from these new theoretical lenses. So in the end, it boils down to the following. Are you adding a brick to the existing knowledge based on a specific theory that you are extending? Or are you problematizing the existing research because you feel uneasy about the underlying assumptions of that research, and therefore you're offering a new kind of theory? So these are the 2 choices that you have in terms of theoretical contribution. Thanks for your attention.
Thank you very much for the presentations of our keynote speakers. If there is any question from our participants at this stage, feel free to ask. If not, we can then proceed with the rest of the workshop. Okay, it seems that there is no question at this stage. So I will now assign our participants to 4 breakout rooms in groups of 2 or 3. Okay, welcome back everyone to the main room. I visited all breakout rooms and I personally enjoyed your discussions and feedback sessions that you had. But now let's hear the concluding remarks of this workshop by the keynote speakers. And I would be grateful if each of you would say something in maximum 2 minutes, as we are running out of time.
Which order?
Oh, sorry, Ralf.
Well,
Maybe I can say, a few words about the experience, because I have very hardworking students who are in the room. And what I can highlight as a key conclusion, I think it was important to differentiate abstract and introduction. And very often what we see is that people use, what is in the introduction and bring it in the abstract. And in group, what we force ourselves to do is really, to structure in key elements. Even if at the beginning it's very long, it's okay. And then you can rework it, but we try to categorize like purpose, like research methodology, like key contributions and the value of the paper. So in different categories, and if you try in writing your abstract using categories, then depending on the journal, maybe you won't keep these titles, but it helps you to select the key elements. And I say it is important to understand that if my mom reads the abstract, she has to understand what you are doing and what you are doing with this paper. I know my mom hates when I say that, but this is a trick to know if the abstract is well written, have the very relevant information in it, and if my mom understands, it's good news.
Yeah. We talked about the differences in journals, that some journals have more template that you should follow for the abstract. And I think Nathalie's journal, International Journal of Managing Projects in Business, have had that in the past. I think they still have that, which is a help also to the reader, of course. And that's fine that some journals have that. Other journals have only mostly then just a word limit of 100, maybe 200 words, but not much more than 200 words. And I looked at my most recent papers, and I think no one had more than 200 words abstract. So it's good to think about that. And I agree completely with Nathalie on it. Like, try to use the abstract, send it out as a pitch of what you're trying to do. Make it interesting. Maybe have a question to begin with or something like that. And also not too many things in the abstract, but just focus on the core. And stick to the same concept throughout. Don't if you're speaking about the same thing, if it's about change management, then talk about change management. Don't mix it up with implementation, with alteration, institutional change, whatever. But just stick to the core concept that you're addressing in the study. I think that would be my reflections on what we talked about in my session. But it was really interesting to see your abstract and very interesting work that several of you are doing, the ones I had the chance to interact with. Thank you.
Thank you, Jonas.
Shall I go next? Yeah, I had two people in my room in the first and second year of the PhD, and I was very impressed by the work they did in 30 minutes. Yeah, and then we discussed the requirement to squeeze quite a lot of information into these 150 words in an abstract. One way of going about it is that you say we have these sections in a paper, yeah, introduction, methodology, etc., and we write 1 to 2 sentences for each of the section. Yeah, by way of that, you make sure that you cover your entire study. Yeah. The other thing is that the abstract should reflect somehow the research question. Yeah, so it must not be exactly copied from the text as a question, but it should be in the text so that people see what is the question that is addressed with that study over here. Yeah, and then of course the philosophical perspective and the contribution to theory should be mentioned as well.
Yeah, I think I'm next in line. So I had 3 PhD students in my room, and we were kind of delinquent. So we didn't do any assignment in terms of writing an abstract. So we chose an emergent strategy, which was a Q&A session. At least that is what the student wanted. The reason was that they were struggling with their own research topics. And they asked a number of questions about the area of a study, how to pick an area of study, how to pick a topic, how to pick a theme. And the issues that we discussed were around the nature of the problem at first, the scope of the research project itself, how to choose a theory out of the many theories available to explore the phenomenon that we want to study, and how to conduct the literature review, the confusion in many of the written papers about theoretical development or theoretical framework and the literature review. These are the kind of things that we discussed. And I offer a few tips in terms of getting the student in the room a little bit less confused about their own choices. And the last one, last but not least, we also discussed issues such as, should we write papers during the course of the PhD work or not? I'm going to stop there.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our keynote speakers and also to our participants. I hope that this was useful for the participating fellows, and I express my gratitude again to our distinguished speakers in this workshop. So if there is no other comment or question or remark, I guess then we can conclude this event.
Thank you very much, Sina, for putting this together.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Sina.
Thank you
Well
so much.
done.
Thank you
very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much. Thank you. It's very interesting. Yeah, bye.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Take care. Hope to see you at a conference.